The night is still. The air hums with quiet secrets. The stars seem to listen. In the heart of dreams, a figure moves between shadows. His name is Morpheus. He walks through visions, soft as moonlight, tracing the edges of human sleep. Each dream is a fragile world. Each heartbeat echoes through the veil of night. He gathers the stories that mortals forget. He shapes them into whispers of peace. But tonight, something changes. The dream currents twist and shimmer with unease. Far beyond the stars, an ancient rhythm begins to stir. A prophecy hums awake. It is called the Night of Prophecy. It comes once every 1,000 years. In its glow, dreams no longer lie. They speak. They warn. They reveal what must be. Morpheus feels it in his bones, in the hush between moments. The balance trembles. He looks toward the horizon of sleep, where light meets shadow and time dissolves. Somewhere in the mortal realm, a dreamer is calling his name. A single voice, a single dream, threaded with destiny. And before the dawn breaks, Morpheus will have to answer. The night began in silence, a silence too perfect to be real. Even the stars seemed to hold their breath, waiting for something unseen. Morpheus drifted through the mist of dreams, his robe trailing like smoke. The dream realm shimmered around him, a sea of visions and forgotten wishes. He could feel the pulse of every sleeper, their minds whispering in the dark. But tonight, something different stirred beneath the calm surface. Dreams overlapped like waves, merging, tangling, becoming something new. He felt it first as a hum, a soft vibration at the edge of perception. Then, a light, a flicker, a pulse from the mortal world below. He turned his gaze toward the dreaming earth, where the silver threads glowed. Each thread was a dream, fragile and bright, woven by mortal hearts. One thread shone brighter than the rest, alive with rhythm and song. Morpheus reached out, touching the thread with gentle curiosity. The dream opened like a door, and he stepped through without a sound. He found himself standing on a hill of glass under a violet sky. The horizon rippled with liquid stars, bending with every breath of wind. In the distance, a girl stood alone, her hair silver as dawnlight. She looked toward the horizon, eyes full of knowing, as if she had seen him before. Morpheus stayed hidden, watching her from the veil between dreams. Her lips moved, and a voice like music spilled into the air. "The sea is calling again," she whispered. "It remembers the promise." Her words echoed across the dreamscape, weaving through stars and silence. Morpheus frowned. No mortal should remember the promise. That was a vow made before time began, before humans could dream at all. He watched as the sea below began to shimmer with ancient light. The water rose without sound, forming symbols that glowed like constellations. Each one pulsed with power, a rhythm that matched the prophecy's breath. Morpheus stepped closer, his shadow stretching across the glass hill. The girl turned, her eyes meeting his. She did not fear him. Instead, she smiled faintly, as though recognizing an old friend. "You came," she said softly. "I dreamed you would." Morpheus hesitated, 1,000 questions stirring within his calm mind. "How do you know my name?" he asked, though his voice was barely wind. The girl closed her eyes. "Because the dreams remember, and tonight, they wake." The words struck him like a bell through still water, clear, pure, final. The dream around them began to shift, trembling with unseen energy. Morpheus felt the dream threads tighten, connecting realms he could not see. The night of prophecy was beginning, and the first dream had already spoken. He looked at Lyra, the mortal dreamer whose voice echoed through the stars. And for the first time in 1,000 years, Morpheus felt something strange. Not fear, not sorrow, but the quiet weight of destiny stirring awake. Morpheus lingered at the edge of Lyra's dream, watching the light ripple and fade. The silver sea calmed, yet the rhythm beneath it refused to rest. Each wave carried whispers, ancient voices, old as the stars themselves. He knew this language. It was the tongue of the first dream. Only those bound by fate could hear it, and tonight, Lyra had answered its call. He stepped closer, tracing the path where silver light turned into threads. They wove around her like ribbons, forming patterns that shimmered and pulsed. Each thread led somewhere, to another sleeper, another dream. A web of connection, stretching beyond sight, fragile yet infinite. The thread of silver, he murmured, the bridge of souls. He had not seen it since the beginning of the world. Lyra stood still, her hands open, as if feeling the threads in the air. "They're alive," she whispered. "They remember everything." Morpheus watched the threads vibrate with quiet energy, humming with memory. Every human heart that had ever dreamed was part of this web. Every fear, every hope, every silent wish, tied together in shimmering light. He reached for one thread, and the dream around him shifted. He was pulled into another vision, a child dreaming of endless rain. The child laughed, catching drops that turned to starlight in her hands. Morpheus smiled faintly. Even in sorrow, the human heart found wonder. He released the thread and drifted back to Lyra's dream. The silver web still pulsed, alive and growing stronger. Something, or someone, was awakening through it. Lyra looked at him, eyes wide with curiosity and calm fear. "Is it supposed to do this?" she asked. "Is this normal?" He shook his head slowly. "No, it should not exist anymore. It was sealed long ago." Lyra tilted her head, listening to the hum that filled the dream's air. "What happens if it opens?" she asked. Morpheus hesitated, his gaze lost in the horizon of stars. "Then the world will remember what it was. Meant to forget," he said softly. "The dreams will become one, and prophecy will walk again." For a moment neither spoke. The dream itself seemed to hold its breath. Then a pulse of silver light surged from the sea, rippling through the threads. The web expanded, glowing brighter, linking dream to dream across eternity. Morpheus could see thousands of lives, thousands of faces, blinking awake in sleep. The hum became a song, ancient and mournful, yet full of hope. He felt the balance shift, a tide pulling the dream realm toward revelation. Lyra stepped closer, her hand glowing faintly in the starlit mist. "Can it be stopped?" she asked, her voice trembling with both awe and fear. Morpheus met her gaze, solemn and calm. "Prophecy cannot be stopped, only guided." The wind in the dream began to rise, carrying whispers of forgotten gods. And Morpheus understood. The thread of silver had chosen its keeper. The night of destiny had begun to weave its story once more. The dream deepened. The violet sky darkened into shades of silver and blue. Morpheus followed Lyra's thread, moving between folds of sleeping minds. He walked through layers of thought, across oceans made of memory and time. Each step took him closer to the heart of her dream, the source of the calling. He passed visions of her childhood, places she had forgotten but never truly left. A garden filled with lanterns, a voice humming an old lullaby in the wind. Every dream holds echoes of truth, and hers rang louder than most. He found her again, standing on a bridge of light suspended over nothingness. Beneath her, reflections of infinite worlds shimmered like drifting stars. She looked lost, yet unafraid, as if she knew this place was her destiny. "Morpheus," she whispered, though he had not yet spoken her name aloud. Her voice carried through the void, warm and soft, like a prayer to the unseen. He appeared beside her, his form woven from moonlight and shadow. "This is your dream," he said. "But it touches something far greater than you." Lyra nodded, her gaze fixed on the stars below the bridge. "They call to me," she said. "I don't know why, but I can hear them." Morpheus listened. Beneath her words was a rhythm, the heartbeat of prophecy. It pulsed in harmony with the thread of silver, alive and waiting to unfold. "The stars speak only when the world forgets," Morpheus said quietly. "And now they remember." Lyra turned to him, eyes wide with wonder. "What are they saying?" He hesitated, hearing the language of the ancients, older than time. "They speak of a promise," he said slowly. of the dream that became the world. The bridge trembled, light rippling through the dream like water. Lyra reached for his hand, her touch both real and imagined. "What happens if I follow it?" she asked, her voice trembling. Morpheus looked into her eyes, seeing reflections of countless lives. "Then you will see the truth of the dream," he said. "But truth always has a cost." The air around them shimmered. Fragments of other dreams bled into hers. Faces appeared, kings, poets, wanderers, all bound by the same silver light. Each whispered a name that faded before it could be understood. Morpheus felt the weight of their longing. The prophecy was awakening through her. He knew then that this girl was not chosen by chance, but by memory itself. Lyra stepped forward, the bridge glowing brighter with each of her steps. Beneath them, the void stirred, reshaping itself into a vast sea of stars. The song of dreams swelled, rising into something close to grief. Morpheus watched, unable to look away, as the pattern revealed itself. The prophecy was not a warning, it was an invitation. And Lyra was the dreamer who would decide whether the world wakes or falls asleep forever. The dream faded like mist, leaving behind echoes of song and starlight. Morpheus stood alone now, beneath a sky carved from quiet silver. Lyra's presence lingered in the air, her thread still glowing faintly in his hand. He knew what he must do next. The prophecy spoke through patterns and silence. To understand its meaning, he needed to visit the oldest place in all dreams, the Library of Shadows, the archive of everything that had ever been imagined. He closed his eyes, and the world bent around him, folding into darkness. When he opened them again, he stood before towering gates made of smoke and light. The gates opened with a sigh, as though they remembered him. Inside, the air shimmered with forgotten words and half-formed stories. Shelves stretched beyond sight, holding scrolls that breathed in their sleep. Dreams written in languages no mortal tongue could speak. He moved silently through the aisles, guided by instinct more than thought. Each step echoed softly, stirring fragments of old visions into motion. Whispers filled the halls, memories of dreamers long gone. He followed a single sound, the faint heartbeat of something sealed away. At the farthest edge of the library, he found it, a scroll bound in starlight. Its seal bore the sigil of the first prophecy, the mark of the dream makers. Morpheus reached for it, but the air thickened, resisting his touch. A voice spoke from the shadows, soft and ancient. "You should not open it." He turned but saw no one, only shifting shapes made of ink and mist. "The prophecy wakes when it is read," the voice continued. "Are you ready to bear it?" Morpheus hesitated. Even gods feared the truth buried in their own creation. But he knew silence was no longer safety. The world was already stirring. He touched the scroll. The seal dissolved like dew under morning light. The parchment unfurled itself, glowing with living words that whispered as they moved. He read in silence. The symbols danced, forming visions in the air around him. He saw the first dream, a world born from the breath of sleep. He saw mortals rise, dream, forget, and dream again. And he saw the thread, the silver bond that held creation together. When broken, the dream would unravel. When mended, it would awaken prophecy. In the vision, he saw Lyra, the dreamer born of forgotten promise. Her voice was the key, her heart the bridge between dream and reality. The library trembled as the words burned themselves into memory. The scroll turned to dust, leaving only light that sank into his palms. Morpheus felt the truth settle within him, cold and eternal. The night of prophecy was not about endings, but beginnings reborn. The balance of dream and waking world hung by a single heartbeat. He turned toward the exit, shadows parting like curtains of ink. Outside, the stars seemed closer, as if leaning in to listen. And in the hush between worlds, Morpheus whispered, "It has begun." The wind carried whispers through the dream realm, thin as silk and cold as glass. Morpheus walked beneath a sky of molten silver, the scroll's words burning in his mind. Every step echoed with the weight of what he had seen, prophecy woven into destiny. He could still hear Lyra's voice in the distance, soft as a prayer beneath the stars. The prophecy spoke of a dreamer who would awaken the truth of the world's heart. And when that dreamer woke, the balance of all things would tremble and realign. He knew now that Lyra was that dreamer, chosen not by gods, but by the dream itself. She was the voice the prophecy had promised, and her awakening had already begun. The silver threads glowed brighter across the horizon, reaching out like veins of light. Every dream connected, forming a vast web pulsing with mortal thought and memory. The dream realm itself seemed alive, shifting and breathing as if newly born. Morpheus raised his hand, feeling the pulse of thousands of sleeping souls. He could feel their fear, their longing, their fragile hope wrapped in silence. The prophecy was unfolding through them, speaking in dreams they would never recall. He walked to the edge of the realm, where the fabric of sleep met the edge of time. There, he found the mirror of ages, a pool of darkness that reflected futures unseen. He gazed into it, and visions unfurled like smoke rising from the surface of still water. He saw Lyra standing before a sea of stars, her hand stretched toward a rising light. He saw worlds colliding, shadows merging with dawn, and dreams spilling into reality. And he saw himself, standing beside her, the keeper of dreams bound to a mortal fate. The mirror quivered, the image flickering like a candle before a storm. Morpheus whispered, "So this is how the balance is kept, by surrendering to change." Behind him, a faint glow shimmered, the silver thread twisting around his form. It linked him to Lyra now, binding them with a light that neither could sever. The prophecy's voice rose within his thoughts, gentle but unrelenting. When the dreamer speaks, the world must listen. When the God answers, the dream must end. He closed his eyes, feeling the tremor of inevitability pass through him like wind. He had seen countless prophecies, endless cycles of creation and silence. But this one felt different. It carried the heartbeat of something deeply human. Perhaps that was why it frightened him. Not because it threatened power, but purpose. Morpheus turned away from the mirror, the stars behind him flaring in quiet unity. He could sense Lyra's dream growing stronger, touching realms once thought unreachable. The prophecy was no longer a whisper. It was a song, and the dream realm was singing. He took a breath, the air thick with the scent of starlight and forgotten time. "Then let it come," he murmured. "Let the dream become what it must be." As he walked away, the silver light followed him like a river of memory. And somewhere beyond the veil of mortal sleep, Lyra began to dream the world anew. The night stretched endlessly, draped in quiet light and trembling stars. Across the dream realm, the air shimmered with awakening energy. Dreams were gathering, merging, crossing, remembering one another. It began with a single heartbeat, then thousands, then the rhythm of the world itself. Morpheus stood in the center of it all, surrounded by rivers of shifting visions. Faces appeared and vanished, voices overlapping in waves of sleep and song. He had seen dream storms before, but this was no storm. This was convergence. The prophecy's pull was binding every dreamer into a single current of truth. He raised his hand, and the air pulsed with recognition, responding to his will. The silver threads weaved themselves into constellations that filled the dark sky. Each one a story, a memory, a fragile piece of the mortal heart. He could feel Lyra's dream at the center, glowing brighter with each passing moment. Her song traveled through the threads, calling the dreamers together in harmony. Children dreamed of stars falling gently into open hands. Elders dreamed of the sea whispering forgotten names with tender patience. Even the weary dreamed of peace, of light, of second chances long denied. Morpheus felt the weight of it, the beauty and sorrow tangled in one breath. The dreams were remembering their purpose, to heal what the waking world had broken. He moved among them, guiding the flow, ensuring no soul was lost in the tide. The threads tightened, humming like strings of a vast celestial instrument. And then, the first ripple of resistance came. A faint distortion moved through the light, turning silver to shadow. Morpheus paused. The harmony faltered for a moment, dissonance creeping in. Something was pulling against the prophecy, something old and restless. He reached into the current, searching the source of the dark vibration. His hand touched emptiness, but it was not absence. It was hunger. A will not born of dream, but of what lies between dreams. He withdrew, his eyes narrowing as the light flickered around him. The balance was not yet lost, but the presence had made itself known. He whispered to the wind, "So, you have heard it too, Sleepless One." The name carried weight, even in silence, the echo of an ancient exile. He turned his gaze to the far horizon, where light bled into shadow. There, beyond the veil, he could sense the Sleepless King stirring. A being untouched by rest, feeding on the stillness dreams could not reach. And though Morpheus stood tall, the stars above seemed to shiver with forewarning. He drew the dreamlight closer to him, weaving it into a shield of memory. The dreamers continued to sing, unaware of what moved beneath their peace. He vowed to protect them, not through force, but through faith and balance. For every dreamer carried a spark of creation, and every spark was worth saving. As the night deepened, the threads resumed their glow, steady and strong. Morpheus watched them pulse across the sky, silver hearts beating in unison. And yet, in the distance, a single shadow lingered. Watching, waiting, awake. The stars dimmed as the horizon began to stir. The dreamlight flickered uncertainly. Morpheus stood in stillness, sensing the tremor that ran through the fabric of sleep. The Sleepless King had awakened, not fully, but enough to disturb the balance. His name was older than dawn, spoken in silence by those who feared to dream. Once, he had ruled the void between worlds, where nothing ever rested or was born. He was the absence that fed on stillness, the whisper that kept minds from peace. Now, his presence coiled through the dream realm like smoke without fire. Morpheus could feel the pressure rising, the air thick with unspoken dread. Dreams began to flicker, breaking apart into fragments of confusion. Where once there had been harmony, now there was trembling light and shifting color. Lyra's dream trembled most of all, her thread shivering like a frightened flame. Morpheus reached through the chaos, wrapping his essence around hers protectively. He whispered across the distance, his voice carried through the threads of silver. "Do not fear the dark, Lyra. It has power, but it cannot dream." She stirred in her sleep, the faint sound of her breath reaching his thoughts. The Sleepless King's shadow stretched long, reaching for the dream's center. A deep hum filled the realm, low and heavy, vibrating through every soul. Morpheus turned toward the sound, and from the void a form began to rise. Not of flesh, but of thought, shifting, formless, ancient as forgetting. "Morpheus," it spoke, the word echoing across the silence like breaking glass. "You have bound the dream too tightly. Let it dissolve. Let it rest no more." Morpheus stood firm, though the shadow towered above him like a storm of silence. "The dream is life," he said calmly, "and life must rest to renew its light." The king's laughter was a hollow sound, like wind moving through an empty shell. "Rest is weakness," he hissed. "Dreams breed illusions. The waking world is truth." The ground beneath them quaked as the dream thread strained against the void's pull. Morpheus raised his hand, summoning light from the core of the realm. A wave of silver radiance spread outward, touching broken dreams and binding them. Each thread that had frayed began to glow, singing softly in defiance of shadow. The Sleepless King recoiled, his shape flickering as though struck by memory. "You cannot silence what was made to remember," Morpheus whispered. For a moment, the light held. The realm breathed again, fragile but alive. Yet the king's voice returned, quieter now, like a thought seated in fear. "The prophecy will undo you, Dream Lord. The dreamer will not remain yours." And with that, he vanished into the folds of darkness, leaving silence in his wake. Morpheus stood among the threads, their glow dim but unbroken. He knew the warning was true. The prophecy was still unfolding. Lyra's part in it was not yet complete, and neither was his. He turned his gaze toward her distant light, soft and steadfast in the night. "The Sleepless King will not end the dream," he murmured. "For even in the darkest silence, someone will always dare to dream." The 1000th year's moon rose, vast and luminous above the horizon of sleep. Its light poured across the dream realm, turning every shadow into liquid silver. Morpheus stood beneath it, the weight of prophecy heavy upon his shoulders. Tonight was the night of prophecy, the hour when dreams and destiny became one. Far beyond, Lyra's thread pulsed with fierce, unyielding brightness. Her dream had grown vast, a living sea that reflected the light of every dreamer. He stepped toward it, crossing the shimmering bridge of woven thoughts. Each step echoed like a heartbeat through the endless fabric of the realm. At the center of the sea, Lyra waited, her eyes aglow with the stars' reflection. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "It's happening, isn't it? The prophecy is real." Morpheus nodded. "The threads have aligned. The dream now chooses its truth." She looked at her hands, glowing faintly with silver light. "And if it chooses wrong, then the world forgets to dream," he said quietly. And all creation falls silent. The waves around them stirred, humming with energy too vast to contain. Visions rose from the water, lives, memories, and stories of every mortal heart. Each shimmered like glass, showing what once was and what might yet be. Lyra stepped closer to the sea, her reflection splitting into countless selves. Children, elders, warriors, poets, all the versions of who she could have been. "They're me," she whispered. "Every dream I've ever had, every life I never lived." "Yes," Morpheus said, "and through you, they will speak the truth of the world." The sea began to glow brighter, the sound of its pulse matching her heartbeat. Morpheus reached out his hand. "Together, Lyra. Dream with me." She hesitated, then placed her hand in his. The world shifted in response. Light burst from the sea, sweeping across the dream realm like a living dawn. The silver threads blazed, connecting every soul, every heart, every dream. Morpheus felt the realm tremble, not with fear, but with awakening. The Sleepless King stirred at the edge of the void, his shadow stretching wide. But the light met him first, soft yet unstoppable, the harmony of 1,000 dreams. He roared in silence, dissolving into the wind that once carried his name. Lyra's voice rose above the chaos, steady and pure, carrying the dream's promise. "In the name of all who sleep and all who wake, let balance be reborn." The waves calmed, the stars brightened, the threads grew still and strong. The dream realm held its breath as the last echo of prophecy faded. Morpheus looked at Lyra, her form radiant yet fragile in the moon's glow. She smiled faintly. "I can feel them all, the dreamers. They're free." He nodded, his expression unreadable, his gaze fixed upon the new dawn. For the first time in an age, he felt something shift deep within his heart. The prophecy had spoken, and the night had remembered how to dream again. The dawn came quietly to the dream realm, soft as breath upon glass. No storms, no shadows, only the tender hum of reborn light. Morpheus stood at the edge of the sea, the moon fading behind him. Lyra drifted nearby, her presence gentle, almost translucent. The prophecy had ended, yet its echo still trembled through the realm. Dreams mended themselves, weaving back into the fabric of eternity. He watched as the threads shimmered, each one a memory restored. A whisper reached him from the distance, faint as a sigh through stars. "The dream endures," it said, "because someone believed it could." He turned and saw Lyra's light flicker, her form fading in the silver mist. She smiled softly, no fear in her gaze, only peace. "Am I disappearing?" she asked, her voice like a fading lullaby. Morpheus nodded, sadness touching his words. "You are returning to wakefulness." She closed her eyes, letting the glow around her pulse once, then dim. I'll remember, she whispered, even if they tell me dreams aren't real. He reached toward her, his touch brushing the air where she once stood. Then the dream will live in you, he said, and that will be enough. Her light vanished completely, leaving only ripples in the starlit sea. The realm fell still, serene in its new order, balanced once again. Yet Morpheus lingered, his gaze lost in the reflection of eternity. The Sleepless King was gone, dissolved into the silence he once ruled. But Morpheus knew, absence never truly vanished. It waited, patient and unseen. He breathed deeply, the scent of starlight filling his being. The world of mortals began to stir beyond the veil of dreams. He could hear them, the soft murmur of sleepers turning in peace. Children smiled in their sleep. Poets stirred with forgotten verses. Even the weary found rest, their minds wrapped in gentle silence. The dream realm pulsed with new energy, tender, uncertain, alive. Morpheus walked along the shore, leaving no footprints behind. Every step birthed a new star, faint but growing in brightness. He stopped before a mirror of still water, his reflection shimmering softly. The face he saw was both young and ancient, shadow and light intertwined. The prophecy is fulfilled, he murmured, but dreams, they never end. The water rippled, showing glimpses of worlds not yet imagined. New dreamers were rising, their hearts ready to shape tomorrow's visions. He smiled faintly, the first trace of warmth touching his immortal calm. Let them dream, he said. Let them build what even gods could not. Above him, the dawn deepened, blending gold and silver in quiet union. The dream realm breathed, infinite and eternal once more. And somewhere, in the waking world, a girl opened her eyes and remembered the moon. In the waking world, morning sunlight spilled through the curtains like liquid gold. Lyra opened her eyes slowly, her breath steady, her heart calm. The dream lingered behind her eyelids, fragments of silver, moonlight, and a voice. She sat up, her mind caught between two worlds that both felt real. Outside, the city murmured with life, engines, footsteps, laughter. Yet deep within, she still heard the faint hum of the dream realm. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling warmth where the light had once been. Morpheus, she whispered. The name tasted like memory and longing. She couldn't explain it, not even to herself, but she knew she had met him. And somehow, she knew the prophecy had changed her forever. Days passed, yet sleep came easily, filled with quiet, vivid dreams. She dreamed not of grandeur, but of balance, rivers flowing, hearts at peace. Each night she wandered through gentle fields of light, hearing whispers of stories. Children dreamed beside her. Elders smiled through the mist of time. And always, a soft presence walked near, unseen but deeply known. She would wake before dawn, the moon fading beyond her window. And though the world was ordinary again, something in her was not. One evening, as stars began to bloom, Lyra took out her notebook. She began to write what she could remember, not facts, but feelings. Lines of poetry formed, unplanned, flowing like echoes from another world. Dreams are not escapes, she wrote. They are bridges between what we are and what we hope. The words felt alive, as though whispered by the wind itself. Somewhere far beyond the veil, Morpheus watched the scene unfold. He stood upon the edge of the dream realm, where starlight met shadow. Her words reached him like ripples across a still lake, soft but steady. He smiled, not as a god, but as something older, a guardian of stillness. She remembers, he said, voice carrying across the sea of dreams. And because she remembers, the world will not forget to rest. He turned toward the vast horizon, where new dreams were being born. Each one a spark of courage, hope, and the endless will to imagine. Above him, the constellations shimmered in patterns unseen by mortals. They told the story of the night of prophecy, not in words, but in light. Morpheus closed his eyes, letting the rhythm of dreaming fill his being. He felt Lyra's heart beating far away, a steady pulse in the song of eternity. And he knew the truth the prophecy had always hidden in silence. That dreams were not the realm of gods or kings, but of those who dared to believe. As the stars turned, the dream realm glowed brighter, alive with infinite stories. And from the heart of that endless night, a whisper rose, gentle and eternal. As long as one soul dares to dream, the night will never end.